Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Joshua, and for tonight's project, we're going to be adding LED strips to each of these cross members in this bookshelf. That'll add a nice soft ambient glow to the items that are below. This may seem simple at first. Those LED strips are meant to be cut up and used in different locations. But I'm going to show you how to size the gauges of wire, solder it onto each LED strip in such a way that it's not going to be exposed or at risk of shocking anybody. And then we're going to install it into the bookshelf in such a way that the wires are hidden and that the switch is still accessible. Let's get started. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to get your LEDs, and these are the ones that I got, just some normal LEDs from Home Depot. But then we're going to try to hold it up here and see if we like the lighting. Mine's going to be about right there. Do not cut these while they're plugged in. Do not cut these while they're plugged in. You can turn off the switch, and maybe you could take the risk, but I'm not going to take that risk. I'm going to turn this LED, turn the switch off, and unplug them before I make the cut. Now that I have my workspace set up, this is really just like, it's an electrical working mat. I'm just going to use it just because it's nice and blue and has a nice contrast to whatever I'm working with. Count out the number of segments that I need. Double check you need 1, 2, 3. Take your handy dandy scissors. Make a cut right along this line right here. There. And I can see the bookshelf from where I'm sitting, so I need 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very important that if you use a kitchen knife, you wash it afterwards, and you try not to tell your wife. There we go. And there are your electrodes. And if you're looking through the other ones, that's already soldered on. So we know that it's safe to do some soldering onto this guy. First thing we need to do to calculate whether or not we have the right gauge wire is to look at the characteristics of our system. We know that for our system we have a 12 volt adapter. See on the output right here, 12 volt adapter with 0.5 amps. A good rule of thumb for most systems is to not drop below 3% for the whole system. So we know we have 12 volts. If we multiply that by that 3%, we know we have 0.36 volts. So when we take that 0.36 volts, kind of set it off to the side for now. If we use Kirchhoff's law, we know that 0.36 volts divided by the current, which is 0.5 amps, that will equal 0.72 ohms. So now we have that 0.72 ohms. Bring it up here, 0.72 ohms. We're going to divide that by our length. Let me show you how I calculated that length. We have our shelf. And we know this is going to be the front. We have the first electrode up to the first, and remember these are 2 conductors. It's going to go to the first strip. And that's actually going to be part of the wire already. So then we have 2 wires coming from the first strip to the second strip. My drawing is not getting very well. So we have each one of these links is actually 18 inches. Sorry, it's gonna be 18 inches. From there, 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 and there. So that's gonna be 6 segments there. And for each gap between one strip to the next strip, it's gonna be 6 segments of 18 inches. So if we continue the rest of the diagram, we're gonna have 2 more electrodes, or 2 more conductors going up to the next strip, and then 2 more electrodes going up to the next strip. And we have 4 total strips. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we actually have 6 times 3, that's gonna be 18. So we have 18 segments times your 18 inches And that's actually going to be 324, 4 backwards, 24 inches. We're actually going to give that a 20% margin. And so total, with the 20% margin, we're going to have 388 inches. I'll move this down for you. Convert that over to feet, that's going to be 32.4 feet. 0.72 ohms divided by 32.4 feet. That's going to give us that 22.4 ohms per 1,000 feet. So if we look at the gauge characteristics of a 22 gauge wire, so we know it's going to be a good conductor. Get my helping hands, and we're going to solder up the first one. Now it's important to make sure that you have an installation technique whenever you start doing the assembly of your wire. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to drill a hole to the back of the bookshelf on each shelf in order to fit the entire LED through. What I like to do with these is I like to get them situated to where you could actually just take this blue one and trim off a little bit on the end. This thicker blue one's actually stranded. Just where it's positioned right on there. Zoom in a little bit. I will use my soldering iron right here. I'm just using a nice little weller with some leaded solder. And there we are. Then we're going to move on to the next electrode. What I like to do with these helping hands, I like to put this electrode behind and then get this guy positioned. If you're ever wondering if something's made a good connection or not, you can always use a multimeter and check the continuity or even check the resistance. I like to check the resistance. So that made a good connection. All right, we said that the blue one was the negative. If you hear me blowing, it's because this leaded solder is not good for you. I'm going to put one of these little heat shrink ones on here and slide it down. And just for now, I'm actually going to use it to cover that and give it a little bit more strength in that joint. Okay, so this is going to be test number 1. I don't have my microphone on, so you have to apologize. So we have 1, 2, good. So now, we've already checked and fixed all the problems with our cord. We're going to start poking a hole in the back of the shelf and then threading the LEDs through the back. Holes in the back, but I think what we need to do is we need to start actually from the top. The length from the outlet to the switch is not that long, and the length from the switch to the first roundabout is not that long. I think that's the best way to do it. That way, the little switch will be on the back side at the top. Ta-da! So it's important to clean the surfaces before you apply the adhesive. I'm going to use these alcohol prep pads. Just wipe the inside edge of them and then let it dry, and then peel off the backing tape and stick it on. Alright, so in order to keep these wires up and out of the way, I've purchased these wire clips. They actually have a little black plastic thing with a little nail going through. But I'm thinking that this nail is actually pretty long. So I might try to use a different nail to get in there. I'm thinking if I get something hard that I can kind of jam with my thumb to kind of get the nail started, and I can use the hammer to finish it up, and the nail won't kind of fall out when I'm using the hammer. So I mean, instead of something hard, I got a popsicle stick. I'm thinking that might help.